Welcome to Anchors Away, a podcast for boaters. As a marina owner and Freedom Boat Club franchise owner on Lake George, I get to see every day the joy that boating brings to people's lives. There's nothing like seeing the smiling faces headed out for a fun day on the water and the experiences we help provide and memories we help make as people disconnect from their busy lives and reconnect with family and friends. Our podcast features conversations with boating experts and industry leaders where we discuss things like how to get into boating, industry trends, boating destinations, tips, tricks, products, and more. From beginners to experienced boaters, we hope these conversations will inspire you to get on the water, spend more time on the water, and introduce others to the boating lifestyle. For anyone who's listened to the podcast before, you know that electric boating is something that excites me, as I've had several guests on, including Torqeedo and Canadian Electric Boat Co., and now Tim Bieber from Templar Electric. Templar, whose mission to eliminate our carbon footprint on global waterways and provide affordable, year-round, eco-friendly, low-maintenance electric boating to the general public for personal use and for small commercial use, such as water taxis, eco-lodges, and sightseeing tours, is certainly a mouthful, but it's also very interesting and very innovative, and the type of boats and their product line is pretty exciting to learn more about. Tim and I spoke at length about their product line, their development, and about Tim's experience growing up in boating, some of the different boat styles he's had and why the shift to electric excites him, and really some of the great boating opportunities that they have up in Canada and why electric is good for the ecosystem there and the ecosystem and environment around all of our waterways. Enjoy our conversation. Tim, thanks for joining me. Anyone who has listened to my previous podcast knows that I'm very excited about electric boating and the future of boating, really, and some of the cool things happening in that space. And you guys are on the forefront of that and doing some very, very exciting things at Templar Marine. Would just like to start off by asking you, are you a boater, or how'd you get into a boating-related company here?
I am a boater. I grew up on boating on lakes, water skiing, and wakeboarding, and just kind of getting a passion for power boating. Never really got into sailing given its complication and didn't have that opportunity. And then when I met my wife, we moved out to Vancouver, and there's just so much boating out in Vancouver. So we started with a small 16-foot runabout, then we got a 19-foot, then a 26-foot, then a 32-foot, and we just kind of explored further and further and further through that whole process, just getting more of a passion for boating, but also hating every time I had to go to the gas dock, because you can imagine with a 32-foot boat with twin 100-gallon tanks, it was almost $1,000 every time we went out. It was just ridiculous. So I figured there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, the bigger boats can be fun, but bigger problems. Did you teach yourself how to boat and operate a boat, and did your wife kind of learn with you, or how did that whole learning to operate and handle a boat process happen?
Yeah, that's actually a lot of funny stories along the way. Basically, yeah, self-taught. So all the boating on lakes, that's obviously, I mean, you're not dealing with sandbars, currents, tides, anything like that. So, kind of naively, I jump into a small 16-foot boat on the ocean, and there was some very specific markers that you had to go around a channel, which I knew nothing about markers. So we just went full throttle straight off from the boat ramp, straight into a sandbar. And the kayaker comes kayaking along, literally in like 4 inches of water. It's, oh yeah, you're supposed to be over there. Those are the markers, eh? I'm like, ah. So you just kind of learn as you go, but that's why you start with a 16-foot and make those mistakes on a 16-foot.
What brands did you buy up there?
I actually can't remember what that 16-foot one. It was, yeah. To be honest, I can't remember what brand that one was. But then the 19 or the 18-foot was a Sea Ray, small open bow Sea Ray with a 135 Black Max Merc outboard, and then the 26-foot was a Sea Ray Sundancer, a really nice, an old classic, kind of from the early 80s classic. Still had some nice mahogany and was repowered. Beautiful, beautiful boat. We loved that boat. And then the 32-foot was a Carver. I forget what model they called it, but it was nice command bridge and easily sleeping for 4 to 6 people. And so we'd take friends and just, I mean, once you get to that caliber and size of boat, you feel like you're yachting. You feel like you're out on a boat. And that was a very fun boat. But I mean, as I said, the gas, the maintenance, the oil changes, it was just, like, as they say, boat, bring out another 1,000. It was literally like that every experience.
Well, we've got a service department here that is funded by those kind of boats, and we see it on both ends for sure.
No,
Did you do a lot of like overnight trips and kind of adventures out on that once you get the bigger boats?
oh yeah, because between Vancouver, the mainland, and Vancouver Island, between Vancouver and Victoria, there's literally unlimited. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of small islands and just little areas to go and explore. So yeah, I mean, every trip was to a different area. There's a lot of boat access only places you can go, with mooring buoys and beautiful, nice white sand beaches. I mean, it almost feels tropical. Orcas swimming around you, porpoises, quite epic. So it's quite amazing to be able to have a boat that you can get that type of range and, kind of an RV on the water, and quite accessible for even somebody like me that wasn't educated in boating. YouTube videos became quite popular for me and my household, between my wife and I, just kind of figuring stuff out, and then also figuring out maintenance. Like, YouTube videos will teach you how to do anything. And, a lot of it just also comes down to common sense and just respecting the environment and respecting the fact that you can get yourself into dangers. So just be careful, be aware, do a lot of research. In Canada, at least, there's Power Squadron. That's quite a popular boat training. So it'd probably be something like that I'd recommend somebody do before they start getting into the kind of boating we were doing.
Yeah, are your kids just as into it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They love being out on the water. It's it's a different experience being on the water, and especially on the ocean. We've now moved inland out of Vancouver into a region in Canada called the Okanagan. It's Canada's wine growing region, and there's probably about 5 lakes that are quite large lakes, like small oceans. But still, it's not the same boating on a lake versus out on the ocean.
So your career didn't really start in the marine space, and you've taken a roundabout way, I think, kind of turning this passion into boating into now part of your career, I should say. How did you end up partnering with Mark and getting involved with Templar? And then we'll talk a little bit about what Templar is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a startup guy. In my career, I've done a lot of small to large media startups, media entertainment startups, tech startups. So I'm just kind of well versed in branding, sales and marketing, business development, launching brands. So when I found out about Mark and what he was doing here, it's a fairly small region and small town. Obviously, the news spread quickly, and my love and passion for boating, plus my skill set in kind of helping launch brands, felt like a perfect partnership between Mark and I. And I've just been loving the fact that this is new innovation in the boating industry.
Could you speak a little about the innovation and really maybe the inspiration behind the formation of Templar? And
Yeah, so Mark's been thinking for some time about this electric space. He has the pedigree in the yachting world. He's previously, and still has certification as a super yacht captain. He has the largest international training school. It's called International Yacht Training. They're in 60 countries around the world. I think 300 schools now of basically training these super yacht captains and crew on these private super yachts. So he kind of comes from a much more technical background in this boating realm, but has been thinking about electric boats for some time. And for he and his wife, Jennifer, for personal use, they had bought a Duffy electric boat, which many of your listeners will know Duffy. Duffy's been around since 1977 doing these electric boats, but they haven't changed the design. They haven't changed the size. They haven't changed the look. They've done nothing really new to it. So when when he bought his Duffy and decided that he needed and wanted something a little bit different, wanted something with a head and a fridge, larger size, take more people out. He basically thought, I can create a boat myself, and I can create something that I think other people would like, almost like that step up from that Duffy that already exists. So that was sort of the spark behind it all and how it all got going.
Why are both of you so bullish on electric? And that's obviously the key feature here. What is it about electric boating that really excited the two of you?
We both have kind of a passion and a desire to change the environment that we live in. So from an eco angle, that's something that is important to us and important to us as a company. As far as a new brand in the marine world, I don't think there's need for another petrol powered, fossil fuel burning, gas burning boat in the market. I think what's needed is a different way of thinking about boats and about their propulsion. So from that perspective, I think that's what we wanted to do, was innovate in not creating something different. Just because Mark and Jennifer wanted a larger boat, they were passionate about the environment and wanted to still have a larger boat that was electric. So that was kind of the reasoning there.
And sales is your forte. What challenges are you experiencing trying to get the earlier adopters to electric and get more people to see that electric is a viable option for marine propulsion?
Yeah, that's a good question. Luckily for us, there's a lot of Teslas that are out there on the road, and every other manufacturer under the sun is releasing their electric vehicles. I mean, even with the news of Ford and the Ford F-150 becoming electric and having an electric version, I think it's made the job a lot easier that the EV market has kind of paved the way for this to be a much more standard thing. But really, most people in the boating world, the power boating world, would obviously only think that there's a gas powered boat out there. The only two options would be standard fuel or diesel. So really, it just comes down to educating people that electric exists. So it's driving awareness. Once people understand that we exist, they see our price point that's very reasonable. It's not like you've got to spend probably 30% more to own the electric vehicle over the gas powered standard class vehicle. But in the electric boating world, and at least with our price point and what we're seeing, our boat is potentially 20 to 30% cheaper than buying a gas boat. So once people understand that there are electric boats out there and that they look at the price point up front and ongoing, which is huge, it actually is a fairly easy sale. It's just that we're a new company out of the gate, and we're just trying to drive awareness to make people understand that we even exist.
Yeah, you talked about that kind of ongoing cost, and we were joking a little bit about maintenance before, and that is a big part of your ownership lifetime expense. And if you guys are eliminating all of that or most of that, that's a big savings that people need to factor in, from the start of their boat buying process.
Oh yeah. In fact, so I ran some numbers because I was on a news show locally in Vancouver when we were launching one of our client out there with a water taxi service. So I ran through some numbers. So when I had that Sea Ray Sundancer, it was a 26 foot. Our boat is a 26 foot. So it's kind of apples to apples as far as at least the size of a boat. On that boat, I would spend about 60 to $80 per operating hour. I used about 40 to 50 liters of fuel per hour. I mean, I'm in Canada, so I'm talking liters. Uh, but 60 to $80 per hour. I would go out for about 4 hours maximum a day. So I kind of rounded it to about $250 a day that I would use in fuel in that 26 foot boat. And then I assumed over the course of a year we didn't use it that much. I kind of assumed maybe 20 days in the course of a year. So 20 times $250 a day came to $5,000 in fuel. That's not including obviously doing oil changes every spring, changing out leg oil. I was constantly, maintaining or swapping out risers and all that kind of stuff that just comes along with maintaining a gas powered engine. So the comparison, so let's say it's an extra $1,000 in regular maintenance, $6,000 annually just to maintain a gas boat and put the fuel in it, versus our boat. When I ran the numbers, it's kind of a joke. 10 cents per operating hour, 4 hours a day, 20 days in the year. It worked out to $8 per year.
It's a nice comparison to be
So
able to make.
what do you want to spend? $6,000 a year or
Yeah, right.
$8 a year?
That's pretty staggering.
And by the way, that Sundancer, I mean, if we're talking new, that Sundancer is probably $170,000 boat, and our kind of what we call our middle of the line Cruiser 26 boat, which is very nice premium, like a very very nice boat, 6 foot headroom in the front V berth that sleeps two. There's no galley on board, but there's obviously a head. There's fridge, barbecue, seats 15 people. So it's more of kind of a weekender or a day cruiser boat. But that boat in Canadian dollars is in the range of 130 to $150,000 Canadian, which in US we're talking not that much more than 100,000 US. So if a Sundancer was, let's say, 150 US and we're talking 100,000 US for our boat, you're getting our boat for $50,000 less up front, and it's gonna cost you $8 a year to operate it. You don't have to maintain it. There's no oil changes. There's no winterizing. I mean, there's nothing that you have to do to an electric boat.
I came into this conversation, and one of my biggest questions was, and I didn't know if this was gonna, if you guys were comfortable sharing the price points on the interview, but was cost, and I honestly can't believe it's inexpensive.
I
You just
know
blew my mind when you
exactly.
told me that.
No, most people would liken this to a Tesla. So if I'm in the market for a Tesla Model S and I'm looking at, let's say, the $120,000 version, but I'm also looking at the BMW 5 Series and nicely optioned out, I could get that for 90,000. Do I really want to spend the extra $30,000 to have electric? Am I going to get the ROI over how long I'm going to own this vehicle? So that's kind of the debate that the road EV market has. But on the water, it's at this point, not for us at least. That isn't the argument. It gets better when you look at the charging stations and the charging infrastructure, because on the road with the EV market, it's all about how we can expand the infrastructure of charging stations, supercharging stations, how we can have more charging, where I can charge my vehicle next. Within the marine world, every marina on planet Earth has at minimum a 10 or a 15, or for the most part 30 amp shore power. So that's already infrastructure that's there, because any boater has house batteries in their boat, or if it's a larger boat, you want to run your AC. So some marinas, bigger marinas, have a 50 or a 60 amp service. But with our boat, there's two charging options. There's a slow charge option, which is what we put standard in all boats and works perfectly fine. And that'll recharge your batteries from zero, which no one will ever get to zero. But if you did happen to be at zero with a standard 15 or 20 amp or a 30 amp shore power service, that'll recharge in 10 hours. So the good thing about the boating world is we give people a range of about 8 to 10 hours in the standard boat, so they can go and boat all day long to their heart's content, zero stress and worry about running out of battery. Then they come home, because nobody, even if you're talking in the commercial world and the water taxi clients that we're selling to, they all have a home port, home dock. They put their boats to bed at night. there's at least a 4 to 8 to 10 hour time period that the boats can be plugged in at a 15 amp, let's call it standard household plug connection, and that's going to recharge it fine. So the infrastructure's there. There's no investment that needs to be made there for a private operator or a commercial operator. And the charging, for the most part, use case of somebody putting their boat to bed overnight is standard in the marine world. So there's no issue. If somebody did want the quick charge option, it'll charge the batteries in 2 hours from zero, but that requires a 60 amp connection, which is much less common on docks, but that option is there and does exist. But so really, I mean, that charging infrastructure is not an issue. It's not a question. That infrastructure is already out there. So that's, I think, actually the best part.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a home run. I'm guessing some of the reason that you guys can price it at the point you can is some of the production efficiency. I was reading that you use the same mold for all 5 lines. So what are those lines, and how do you see demand for the commercial side versus the personal use side?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, one hull, and what we're contemplating is different deck molds, but we have one hull mold. And so that just keeps things simple. Out of that one hull mold, and the deck mold, we basically have 2 models. The consumer model, which is the Cruiser 26 that you see on our website, it's 29 feet length over water because it has a nice big 3-foot swim platform. It's 9'6" beam. It's Transport Canada certified for 15 passengers on the consumer side, 12 passengers on the commercial side. And it's a very stable hull. Transport Canada actually certified it for 33 knot winds and 2-meter high waves. So I couldn't see anybody going out in that, but that just is a testament to how stable it actually is. And then that brings me to the commercial client. The commercial client obviously wants a stable, safe boat. And on the commercial side, just with small vessel operating permits, it's the same in the U.S. That's limited to 12 passengers. So it's 12 passengers certified for the commercial. And the commercial water taxi boat is obviously the same hull. It's the same configuration. It works well with the wraparound seating. The front V-berth cabin, instead of it being a bed and the electric flush toilet, the head in the front, that just gets converted over to either a bike storage to have basically two bikes slide in, or life jacket storage. In the future, you see on our website, we have the sedan version. So that's obviously a different deck mold. That's not necessarily a different direction. It's still it's a consumer boat, but that's a boat that's going to have a longer range of travel, more batteries. We have a composite solar roof that we're testing and R&Ding right now. So it would probably be more so powered by solar to be able to get basically an unlimited range. You would have sleeping, like a larger sleeping port. You would have the galley, just more kind of space, back deck, but still based on the same hull platform. So that's where we're at this point. And then we have the sedan model, which is the same hull, but it would definitely be a different deck mold, and that boat would be still on the consumer side of the market, and that would be your longer range cruising boat, get away for more than just a weekend. That one we're working on a composite roof, solar roof, and more of a solar powered boat that would be unlimited range. So that one at this point is just a render. We've got the designs for it. We're happy to build it for anybody that wants it, but we're focused right now on the kind of the middle of the line boats with this Cruiser 26 and the water taxi, and just really trying to keep up with demand of water taxi. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah. So how many of those are you building at this point?
So the water taxis, we're trying to take that business slowly, just so that we do that right and we don't overload our factory. But right now, actually, we're in the process of building 6. We've got an order for 12, with the first 6 to be delivered early spring 2020. So those are in the works right now. So those 12 water taxis are more of a harbor version for a client in Victoria. So they've given us an order for 12, but 6 to start that we're building right now for an early spring 2020 delivery. And that'll be kind of a hybrid between our current Cruiser 26, nicer appointed, nicer upholstery, still having the fridge and the head, but a little bit more basic. It'll be a harbor cruise model. They're an interesting client that have a hop on, hop off tourist bus service, and they'll extend that bus service hop on, hop off ticket to the water
what a cool
in
idea.
Victoria. And so people can get out on the water, experience the harbor, inner harbor area. There's a number of different little channels they can explore through that operation. And then they, at least in Canada, I'm sure it's probably similar in most parts of the US, to get an event license to actually do wine and dine. You know, you want to serve some wine and cheese and do an evening cruise, you've got to have a head on board the vessel. So given that these are a larger boat with the larger V berth with the head, there's that ability now to have an event license and be licensed to be able to serve alcohol on board, even if that's just wine and cheese for the evenings. So it's a brilliant market for us. And given that the operating costs are so much cheaper, there's no fumes, there's no noise. For these harbor cruise operators to have a nice experience for tourists, to experience the waterfront of some of these beautiful towns, like Victoria, for instance, is a very beautiful town. And in Canada, we're quite eco-conscious. Victoria is no exception. So to be able to have an electric boat in these harbors with the ecosystem that exists is not only a big PR win, but it's a big environmental win. And I'll give you an example. When I was in Victoria and we were doing the sea trialing for this client and kind of closing this deal about a month and a half ago, there was a killer whale, an orca, male juvenile, that came cruising into the inner harbor. And the inner harbor in Victoria is quite small. There's float planes coming in and out. There's large passenger ferries. It's quite busy and very small. And this orca just came cruising on in. They shut the entire marina down. They had the airplanes circling until this orca was done his little exploring visit.
Oh my God, that is wild.
I know. So I actually got video of it just from my iPhone. I kind of zoomed in with the pinch and pull. And apparently I was the only guy in Victoria that got video of it. So the news caught wind of it when I put it on my Facebook feed. So then the news came down, and it was already news people about the launch of this service for this client. But then I was also on the news because I spotted this orca coming through. But, you know, when we're dealing with these fragile ecosystems, these inland waterways, and just the current discussion about being much more environmentally friendly, lowering carbon emissions, being more respectful of our environment, that was just a really clear and interesting indication that something as magical as a killer whale will just come cruising on into some of these marinas that are extremely busy in inner harbors. So it really means that I think we have to think differently about the kinds of vessels that we're putting into these waterways, especially these tighter harbor areas, because there's just a massive amount of pollution that we're dumping back into our waterways, into the ocean in general.
Yeah. How did you guys, you've got some important partners that I'm sure you did extensive research and vetting on. You got Vector and Gilbert Creative and Torquedo. How did you decide on these partners, and what are they bringing to the table?
We were lucky enough that locally there was this expertise and skill set that existed. So we basically partnered with them on the initial boat and haven't looked back. Vector Marine, for instance, are building some incredibly innovative, massive go-fast boats, kind of funny though, because it's kind of a polar opposite business. They're putting thousands of horsepower into these boats that do 140 miles per hour. But really, at the end of the day, their fiberglass building and their design ability is second to none. And so that's been kind of a big plus for us in R&Ding something new and coming up with something new, and even if it's in the electric world. But it's been pretty interesting that we're dealing with, the equivalent horsepower of our 10 kilowatt 48 volt motor is about 20 horsepower. And the motors, the two motors combined that they put into their boats are in excess of 1,000 horsepower. So literally, it does not get more. It does not get more polar opposite. But but dealing in that realm of the marine industry to make a boat go that fast, be that strong, be that stable. There's some insane expertise that's here and available to us.
Any last little piece of advice or piece of knowledge you want to pass on to people looking into boating or really into electric boating and what they should be looking for in the near future?
I think the biggest thing that I would say is just think twice about buying another gas-powered boat. It's fun to be out boating, and it's fun to be able to kind of have the range that a gas-powered boat will give. But I think it's, it's just something that we as a society need to start thinking twice about. And given that there's amazing options like this that exist that frankly don't cost more than the equivalent gas-powered boat, I think it's just, give it a chance and see if electric can work for you.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll look forward to seeing what's next.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, the electric space is something that I'm bullish on. Templar and the type of boats they're building, the style of boats they're building, and some of the innovations that they're introducing to the electric space are really going to be fun to watch over the next few years, and wish them the best of luck. And hopefully we'll be checking back in with Tim and his team a year from now to see what else they come up with. Until next time, happy boating.